Imagine waking up and looking out your window only to see the sun shining. Clear blue skies while brilliant light pours across southern England. So you think, finally, it'll warm up today. But then you check the thermometer. -9 degrees. You wait an hour and it's still -9. You wait until lunch, yet nothing changes. -9. The sun is blazing, but nothing is melting. Nothing is warming, and somehow nothing is changing. This was Monday, January 12, 1987. Not the coldest night, but the coldest day Britain has ever recorded. Because from sunrise to sunset, temperatures stayed below -8 across the entire country. So while the sky looked hopeful, Big Ben froze mid-chime. And while the sun shone brightly, the sea turned to ice. Meanwhile, trains trapped passengers for 13 hours. And even though the sun was brilliant, it did absolutely nothing. This is what Britain's coldest day ever actually looked like. The morning had started with hope. Because on January 7th, Siberian air swept across Scandinavia before crashing into Britain like a frozen wall. At first, people thought it would pass. Maybe a few cold days, maybe some disruption, then back to normal. But instead of passing, it settled in. And once it settled, it refused to move. By January 9th, temperatures were already plummeting, and as snow began falling across the southeast, easterly winds drove it sideways through every layer you wore. By January 11th, Kent, Essex, London, Surrey, all buried under 50 centimeters of snow, while the North Downs recorded over 75, which means 2.5 feet of snow in places that barely see 2 inches most winters. And yet, that still wasn't the worst part, because what happened next, nobody expected. Monday, January 12th, 1987. You wake up and pull back the curtains, and there it is. Sunshine. Brilliant, clear, beautiful sunshine. So for a moment, you feel relief. Maybe the cold snap is breaking. But when you step outside to fetch the milk, the cold hits you like a wall. Your lungs seize while your eyes water instantly. Because this isn't normal cold. This is something else. At Waltingham in Surrey, the temperature at 9 a.m. reads -9.1 degrees Celsius. So naturally, you assume it'll warm up by midday. And as the sun climbs higher, 10 a.m. still -9. 11 a.m. -9. Noon arrives, and although the sun is directly overhead, shining as bright as summer, the thermometer hasn't moved. -9.1 degrees. From dawn until dusk, the temperature never rose above it. Not once. Not even for a single minute. London recorded -8.3 all day, while much of the Midlands stayed between -6 and -8. And the warmest spot on mainland Britain? The Butt of Lewis in Scotland, 0.1 degrees Celsius. Which means everywhere else, frozen solid. This was the coldest day of the entire 20th century. Colder at midday than anything recorded during 1963's Big Freeze. So even though the sun shone all day, it did absolutely nothing. What does a day like that actually look like? Well, you're standing in your kitchen making tea. The kettle boils and you pour. Steam rises. But by the time you've added milk and walked into the living room, the tea is already lukewarm. Because the air inside your own house is cold enough to hold your breath in place. You can see it, as if you were standing outside. The windows aren't just frosted. Instead, they're covered in thick ice on the inside. Not delicate patterns you can scrape away, but solid ice that requires a knife. And in the bathroom, ice on the mirror, ice on the tiles. In some homes, even the toilet water is frozen solid, so when you turn the tap, nothing happens, because the pipes have given up. Outside, it looks like a postcard. Brilliant sunshine, blue sky, snow sparkling like diamonds. And that's what makes it dangerous, because although it looks beautiful, the moment you step out, reality hits. Your first breath sears your lungs, while the air feels sharp, like inhaling glass. Your nose hairs freeze instantly, and when your eyes water, those tears freeze on your cheeks. So within 30 seconds, your fingers go numb, even inside gloves. Every surface is ice. The pavement, the road, everything. So people shuffle like penguins because they're terrified of falling. Cars sit buried under snow. Engines won't start. And ice on windscreens is so thick scrapers just bounce off. And then there's the sea. At Southend-on-Sea in Essex, people walk down to the shore. But instead of waves, they see slush. Because the tide is coming in as thick, grey, frozen slush. Chunks of ice float in the water, and as the temperature holds steady, ice begins forming along the coastline in real time. You can hear it, a crackling sound, a creaking sound, as the sea freezes. In London, meanwhile, something historic happens. Big Ben stops. Not because of snow, but because of cold. Pure, brutal cold. As metal contracts and oil thickens inside the mechanism, the chiming hammer freezes mid-swing, so at 11:43 a.m. the clock simply stops. And for most of that day, Big Ben stands silent, because even the heart of London has frozen. And that's when it truly sinks in. Because when Big Ben stops, it isn't just a clock. It's a signal. A signal that something is wrong. Deeply wrong. London is a city that keeps moving. Through war, through blackouts, through the Blitz, through strikes and chaos and crisis. And yet, on this day, even time itself seems to hesitate. There's something unsettling about silence in a city built on noise. No chime, no echo across the Thames, just cold air, and the faint sound of wind cutting through frozen streets. People notice, even if they don't say it out loud, because when something that old, that constant, that dependable, stops, it makes everything feel fragile. Suddenly, this isn't just bad weather. It isn't just inconvenience. It feels historic. And history doesn't feel comfortable when you're living inside it. You start to measure everything differently. How long the pipes will last, how much coal is left, how many more nights like this you can endure. Because the cold isn't dramatic, it isn't loud, it doesn't explode. It lingers, quietly, relentlessly. And that quiet is what unsettles people most. Not panic, not chaos, but endurance. The kind that stretches from one freezing sunrise to the next. And as night falls over London once again, the silence remains. Big Ben doesn't chime, the streets don't thaw, and no one yet knows how much longer this will last. The cold doesn't leave. Because even as January 13th arrives, more snow falls. And while temperatures plunge to minus 23.3 degrees, the sun keeps shining, doing nothing. Then, as if that weren't enough, the clouds roll in. 14 consecutive sunless days. So, although the thaw eventually begins on January 20th, Britain is exhausted. And when milk finally arrives unfrozen, people cheer, because they survived it. January 12th remains the record, the day the sun shone bright, yet did absolutely nothing.